What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have the co-founders of Viral Nation, Joe and Matt. And before I formally introduce you both, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. It's kind of a couple of two things, Joe and Matt, which is like, this is part of the top agency series. So I've had some amazing agencies, but you kind of play in that world of top brands. So I've had some interesting brands. I've had Kettle Chips, the founder of RX Bar, Quest Nutrition on, and some of the cool agency ones. I had Jason Swank on. He talked about how he built up his agency to over 8 figures and sold it. And then he's been buying up agencies. That's been interesting. And then Todd Taskey actually, he will pair private equity with agencies, help sell them. He has a Second Bite podcast. He's found some of the agencies make more on the second bite than they do on the first when selling it. And we talked about valuation and business and everything. So those are good episodes to check out there. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. How do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. We, Joe and Matt, we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company so they could just create great content and run their business and create great relationships. So for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com to learn more. Lots of free resources on the podcast about that as well. So I'm excited to introduce Joe Gagliese and Mat Micheli, and they're co-founders and co-CEOs of Viral Nation. They actually combine marketing, talent, and technology to help great brands lead the charge in the attention economy. Okay. And Viral Nation works with tens of thousands of influencers across the social landscape, and they fuel growth for some of the world's leading brands. Disney, Amazon Prime, Coca-Cola, Hasbro, Meta, Oculus, Logitech, Walmart, Uber. I can go on and on, guys. So check it out, viralnation.com. And thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
You.
So I explained succinctly, but go a little bit deeper. Talk about Viral Nation and what you do, because you actually have a few different solutions.
Yeah, so Viral Nation is really unique in the sense that our kind of inherent long-term vision required us to tackle kind of many objectives along the way. So, Viral Nation today has kind of 3 unique, business lines, but those business lines over the last 12 months and into the next 18 are actually coming together in a much more succinct way than when we were building them. So yeah, you were right. So we have Viral Nation Talent Group. Viral Nation Talent Group's the world's largest talent agency for social media creators. We represent over 1,000 creators exclusively over there. And, that business is really meant to develop a place, an organization or a safe place for creators around the world to go to really exfoliate the opportunity that they find themselves in, which is, they're creating content for large audiences and they're trying to figure out how to make it a career. Viral Nation Talent, unlike other talent agencies in the world, looked at it not from a talent agency lens, but looked at it from a business partner lens, which is something that, has been a big reason for our success in that specific organization. And really, what we do is we kind of mapped out for a creator, what are those 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways that creators can monetize what they're doing. And then we've kind of worked our butts off to make sure that we're world-class in each one of those areas in one place. For years, creators had this kind of fragmented, organizational design around them. Creators don't have the most business acumen. They didn't come from this world. A lot of them get kind of slingshotted into it. And, unfortunately, a lot of them end up with, 7 different organizations doing things. And what we really wanted to do is create that business consultancy run by technology that allows them to just exfoliate whatever opportunity is there for them. So Viral Nation Talent Group has really come a long way and thrived over the years, and we can unpack it some more in terms of the technology and the different service lines. Viral Nation Marketing Group is our biggest organization in terms of people.
Really
And
quickly, Joe, on that
yeah,
front, before we get to, I do want to unpack it a little bit there.
Sure.
We'll go, but on Talent Group. I would love to hear, well, I want to talk about the 5 to 7 ways of monetization, but I always think of like Scooter Braun discovers, Justin Bieber, right? I'm curious who you now probably people are coming to you because you're more known, but early on, in the early days, who are some of the notable people that you, or what were you looking for in discovering some of the talent that you can match with and help them monetize?
Go ahead, Matty.
Yeah, I think that we were looking for more developmental talent when we first started, where this was so new. Remember, Jeremy, this was 9 years ago, and no one understood what the term influencer meant. So, for instance, the first talent we ever signed was a parking lot attendant at a local hockey team. And the most he had ever made off his social was $50. So that and he had about 250,000 followers at the time.
Really, a parking lot attendant?
Parking lot attendant.
He used to make these funny videos from inside the parking booth.
And he lived in an apartment with 4 other friends, came from a working class immigrant family. And that was a catalyst for us we changed his life in under a month, where he started making thousands. And his mother drove almost 4.5 hours to come see us because she said to us that we changed him and his family's life. And that was really what started it all, where he then recommended the entire community of Viners and YouTubers at the time. And then, before within 6 months, we represented over 50. Because no one had brought big brands on social. And we knew that these influencers, that the only way they were going to have to start really monetizing is if big brands started coming onto social. So it happened really quickly, but it was because, these people didn't have they weren't making any money. They were working minimum wage jobs in addition to, being a content creator on the side. And then we showed them that they can turn a passion into a career. That was literally on our deck and what we talked about with these influencers at the time, turning a passion into a career.
What those influencers didn't know, Jeremy, was that me and Matt were staying up till all hours of the night emailing every brand who would take our email. If you start to look forward, it really started to snowball and the space started to grow. We launched Viral Nation Marketing a year after we launched Viral Nation Talent. So what was interesting was we were able to lead the space on the brand side and the talent side at the same time. So we were truly, early pioneers of what that space looked like, and we were really busting our butts in the onset to really just put it on the map. If you fast forward to today, the nuances of that have fluctuated so dramatically, right? I think originally influencers and creators were seen as these kids doing silly stuff in their basement, and folks didn't really respect the craft. That changed a little bit for a while. Then it was a fad potentially. So the creators have been through a lot of stuff over the last 10 years. But if at some point, though, I think the general public and typical talent companies started visualizing them as these micro celebrities. And that's where we veered the other way. We see creators as the next generation of media organizations. And we're not in the business of trying to recreate a CAA or UTA or William Morris or one of these talent companies. We want to create, Accenture for talent. Right. It's Viral Nation is the CEO of your media company, and we're going to work our hardest to make sure that you're capitalizing on every opportunity. So when we go back to those monetizations, you have what everybody in the world does and does alone, which is brand deals, right? And brand deals is how the space feeds itself. But there's so much beyond that. So, we started really working on, the first thing we opened up what we call creator studios. So creator studios, so we had brand deals and sponsorships. Then we went creator studios, which was helping to monetize the channels themselves. So cutting deals with Facebook and Snapchat and YouTube and folks to try to figure out how we can really maximize the earning potential on the platform. And we run, I think now, Matt, keep me honest, probably about 300 or 400 big creators through that specific channel. Then we went to original productions. So, there's this, creators are incredible at what they do. And, these new streaming companies are craving content. So we started offering a division that helps creators kind of go from social to creating long form opportunities that can fall on the Netflixes and the Hulus of the world, and et cetera.
Totally. I mean, just on that point, Joe, like I've been watching Dave. I don't know if you've seen that show. Dave, I don't know where he started, but he did definitely have a viral video on YouTube of, what I'm talking about. Yeah. And now I'm like, he's got a Netflix show.
Yeah. And call the streamers stupid, but when you get a show coming from Viral Nation, it comes with 100 million eyeballs behind it, right? So, there's merit to the fact that people already like their stuff at scale, and they're their own promotional vehicle. There's a lot of compelling aspects. I think we have about 47 shows under development.
So let's plug a few. Are any out that we could plug for people to check out? Or
you know what? I don't know, Matt. Is there's any out? Like we just rolled out the program in January of this year.
Okay.
So a lot of that stuff, as you know, takes a long time production. So those ones are signed, and they're all in different stages of production. Some are in pilot, some are about to go live, but I don't think any have hit the circuit yet. But I can circle back. There might be a couple.
Yeah. But it's crazy to think that video, and then I'm watching Dave, and like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in the video with him. It's wild, right? The journey for them must be wild.
Yeah, it's really something.
So you have the brand deals, the creator studios, original productions.
Then we have a podcast division, which is up your alley. But we brought over a guy who was running the second largest podcast syndicate in the world over, and he began putting together the rails. So on that. And
by the way, we don't compete with them because we really specialize in B2B. So I tell people, if you have a comedy podcast,
I just know you understand the space.
I'm saying True Crime Podcast. I'm like, we are not the company to help them with that. It's a B2B podcast. You guys have like people with, millions and millions of followers. It's a totally different business model too.
Yeah. So you have to think of it this way, like each creator can fit into these different verticals uniquely, right? So someone who might not be as good on the original production side might be an incredible candidate for a podcast. So I think there's about 60 of those. There's about 8 or 9 of them live right now. They're doing really, really well. Then outside of podcasts, then you get into what we call OTT, or over the top. And basically, we've developed relationships with all the top streamers in the world and the companies who distribute on their behalf. And we actually shoot catalogs of past creator content into these OTT networks to extend the life and value of that content a little bit further and add some other revenue potential. Then we have our ventures team. So I'm really proud to say we have 100 talent ventures. A bunch of them are live, everything from a salad bowl company to, I know there's a condom line that just went out. There's a lot of really interesting ventures coming out of these guys, a halal yogurt brand. So it's really about.
Are there any there we can plug? So I want to talk a little bit about the venture side too. So like the talent are basically able to produce their own products and business essentially out of a consumer-based business, it sounds like, out of this.
Right. So each of these divisions I'm talking about has basically a leader or someone who's overseeing it, and they have a team. So it's basically like, think about it like a creator comes in, they get an assessment done. Based on that assessment, it'll tell them how many of those doors they can unlock. Yeah. Based on the doors they unlock, those guys show up with all the assets and all the teams necessary to get it done. So if I'm a creator and I come and sign in the Viral Nation hemisphere, I might, in my first week end up on a couple-hour call with the podcast division, a couple-hour call with the venture division, some OTT, et cetera. And it's really just about taking advantage of what they've created. If you look at traditional media companies and what they're pulling in for the eyeballs they have, we have one talent who does all of CBS per week. I think it's a tidal wave that's on its way in, and we were really aggressive in making sure that we had the world's only single source solution for creator. Truly, we're the only company on earth that kind of has that entire setup at max volume. So, wrapping around the talent in that way became a huge value proposition. And we talked about earlier us citing the parking lot attendant. Now, Viral Nation will receive anywhere between 100 and 300 applications a day from creators around the world. We've developed a really succinct rubric on how we're choosing which creators we're working with, because we don't want to, you don't want to have 50 folks who do the exact same thing. You don't want, you start to learn from our data who performs well in which divisions. So we're very succinct and purposeful in how we're onboarding folks into that world. And the thing's growing like
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's exciting. It is truly exciting. And I'll cap that off with, and Matt can kind of go into more of the detail, but the goal of that company again was not to be a talent agency. It was to become a sophisticated, almost consulting backed by tech operation. And people thought we were nuts, Jeremy, when we said we were going to do that 3-4 years ago. We're here, and now we're revered across all of these different spaces. And we didn't just stop there. We actually made custom tech to bring the talent company into a true tech-led business, which was also something people thought we were nuts. Me and Matt used to say, we're going to have the first tech talent company, and people were like, okay. And they thought we would make just, call it a marketplace feature or something that, could display the talent. But what Matt ended up creating, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about it, was he created an infrastructure technology that allows us to have visibility across that whole business. So we're able to, it's our own CRM. It's how we manage our teams. It's how we manage the agents. It's how we manage the talent. It's how we get visibility on pipeline. It's how we ultimately track and make sure that all the talent's getting what they need when they need it. It's how we keep folks on the rail, because the traditional talent world is still BlackBerries and meetings, right? And deprioritizing people based off of them not getting the right attention. And our goal was, to take away the bias by putting in an incredible system that allows our agents to become business leaders. And they're now working as a steward for the talent, not a talent agent. And then Matt took it a step further from that technology, and he actually created a product called Creator Plus. And we just started rolling that out. About 300 or 400 of our talent are already enrolled. And basically, it's an app that the creators get when they sign with Viral Nation that's exclusive to us. And within there, they can kind of see their P&L. They can see where they're at month to month. They can see their finances. They can see their how they're doing across, how their agent's doing. How many proposals am I on? How many discovery calls is this person? It's all about transparency, but also giving the creator tools to be able to understand and capitalize on their business. So that was a really, interesting global first in terms of like that connectivity of turning a talent company into a tech company. And all of this will serve the greater purpose we'll get to in where we're going. But it started as a talent agency, was a talent agency for a long time, had to grow it that way. And then one day said, okay, it's time to bring the noise and flip this thing upside down and make it, something truly differentiated. But Matt, if you want to touch on creator operating system.
Matt, I want you to touch on tech-led, what that means. But after that, I want to circle back to the parking lot attendant, because I want to hear the manual stuff that you had to do. Because like you said, on the phone, like these, you're running around in the background, making it look easy. So
yeah, I can knock that one out for you. Basically, man, it was, you have two options. One is you wait for a brand to reach out for them, and then you broker that relationship to fruition, and you basically gain your value by increasing that opportunity or exfoliating it, and et cetera. Or you gotta use the data of the audience you have in terms of their audience, find the brands that align with it. And me and Matt used to go on LinkedIn. We got tools to find emails, and we would just blast these brands and say, hey, did you know that this guy we represent, is speaking to, 8 million people in your audience on a weekly basis? Like that, maybe you want to get in on that action type thing. and really just evolved from there. We were just managing it on on a spreadsheet and in my workbook for a number of years. And, unfortunately, that's how a lot of organizations still operate today.
Who was a good fit for the parking lot attendant?
Say that again. Oh, actually, his first deal was with a Post cereal brand, so Sugar Crisp cereal. I think the second one we got him, Maddie, was that Samsung. No, the Samsung. Remember, he went to that camp festival thing.
Yeah, and Tic Tac. So
Tic Tacs.
Three major brands within 6 months.
Yeah, Tic Tacs, and then Samsung paid for him and his friends to come to an event and paid him to post. And yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
That's wild. So, I mean, in those days, like you were mentioning, kind of like those 7 things that people can monetize. It was really brand deals, and like
that was all there was.
Right over time, now you have the creator studios, the original productions, and everything else that you're bringing in. But it also sounds like you're kind of creating like an all-in-one solution for these creators to manage their P&L, that have it's almost like a CRM also, because they can see where things are at so that they could just worry about creating. And then you've kind of taken all these other pieces off of their plate. But
the problem was they were operating in a vacuum before with very little oversight and no direction of who's good and who's not. So you would have a creator, like, let's just role play this out for a second, Jeremy. It's like, I'm a guy who all of a sudden has 1 million followers on YouTube. And basically what that does is it signals the attack. So now what happens is the podcast companies that just do podcasts, the venture companies that just do venture, the brand deal companies that just do brand deals start going after these guys. And what they end up with after the first year is not a lot of efficiency in them. They have a lifeline. They have a lifespan. Right. And that first part is actually their biggest opportunity, not only to grow, but to monetize. So they waste about a year fragmenting this. And now someone who doesn't understand any of those pieces intrinsically is now dealing with 7 or 8 or 9 different companies and contacts. And it's broken. And it's predatorial in a way because the talent doesn't understand how to properly vet those opportunities. So our goal was almost like equal parts revenue driving, obviously, because we're running a business, but it was also like, how do you safeguard these folks to just get what they need, as opposed to them trying to go out in the wild with no map and no guidance and no acumen and try to piece it all together. It's too hard. And unlike celebrities and unlike athletes, they don't get the formal training. They don't go through, I was in college, then I went to the NFL, then they don't go through, I auditioned in LA for 6 years, got that first part as like a backup and got to see the space unfold. These guys go from, my son to all of a sudden, speaking to hundreds of millions of people. So the space needs Viral Nation talent run the way we're running it. And we saw that. And, my hope is that there's lots of room in this space for competition. So my hope is that, other organizations start to adopt this model over the next 5 or 10 years. And because there's space for us, right? There's millions of creators. But something's got to change, and we got to get pretty serious about how we're helping these guys and girls, basically take advantage of the biggest opportunity of their lives.
Matt, talk about tech-led. What that means.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, traditionally in the talent business, historically dating back to when it was just celebrities, actors, athletes, is brands will do these endorsement deals and there is no data or quantification as it relates to the impact of these endorsement deals. So we saw that very early on. And really our mission with being tech-led is to be able to quantify impact on every single one of the pieces of work that we do for our brand. So it's not just because we have a marketing agency and that's our mandate as marketers. As talent, as a talent organization, our main goal is to be able to also prove the value back to the brands that are buying talent. So really being tech-led in that sense of being able to have enterprise level data that we can go back to the brands and say, hey, Jimmy Drew, generated $1 million in sales for you. And then going backwards and saying, hey, Jimmy is a great fit for your brand because of X, Y, and Z. And the only way we can do that is with technology. So, and then as we scale the business, we know, like, as Joe said, traditional talent business are BlackBerries and notebooks traditionally. And we know that it's impossible because influencers in the game of creators is it changes every single day. The following size on one of our creators, on every single one of our 950, ish creators, changes today versus yesterday. And the only way to do that and really follow that and be able to report back to the brands on success is being tech led. And that's what we really focus on for our infrastructure, and be able to support our agents to scale and generate even more revenue for our talent. And that's really
Jeremy,
scale.
The thing I would add to what Matt's saying too is that people don't understand, Jeremy, this is big business, and it's still being treated like a hobby because the world hasn't caught up to the magnitude of what's happened. So, I'll give you an example.
I mean, it's amazing because, like, even if you look at shows like Dancing with the Stars, right? I mean, it's social media influencer, right? And so it's starting to hit the mainstream, right? It's starting to play out.
Not even that, Jeremy. Think about this, right? Like we have a young woman on YouTube who has 115 million subscribers. And she does hundreds and hundreds of millions of views of kids every single week. And she outpunches the amount of people who watch Disney releases. And we're still working on getting brands to understand that value. That's where we're at. But you might see a Disney show on the Disney Channel monetizing at 300,000 an episode and 400,000 people watched it. And she might be monetizing at 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 an episode, and 65 million people are seeing it. This is big business. It just hasn't caught up yet, which is why this kind of tech-led, multi-pronged enterprise setup that we've kind of motioned into over the last 3 years, because it's not easy, Jeremy. This took like pain, like you wouldn't even believe, to get it to this right spot. But we're almost like not building for now. We're building for when the world figures out what's going on over here. There's going to be an expectation that no one's going to be able to meet but us as it relates to how this scales.
Yeah. And would you say, like right now, you were mentioning like Disney versus this creator, and they may get more views. Is it cheaper for brands? Like, is now a time for brands to like really get in? Absolutely. Because they're getting it kind of on the cheap at this point until people figure this out.
So it was even cheaper. Think about this. It was 90% cheaper than where it is today, and it's still cheaper. So yes, the issue is, and this is a good segue into Viral Nation marketing, is these large organizations. So to caveat into the Viral Nation marketing side of the business, Jeremy, huge organizations are what we call media led. Right. So Viral Nation specializes in enterprise clients. It's just where we play. Scale is our biggest advantage. So when you think about these big organizations, Coke, Disney, Walmart, whomever, right? They're traditionally very much media led organizations. So if they have $1 billion pot, 90% of that is going to traditional media and other that would be in those buckets. Even to this day, right? So what Viral Nation marketing is really taking on is how do you help these large organizations around the world adapt to the change that's happened in culture? And that change is magnificent. So now you have organizations like the one you see on the screen shifting from media-led to social media-led, and that is a massive undertaking. And Viral Nation's kind of the global leader as it relates to helping folks make that transition. And that transition means social content, social strategy, influencer marketing, employee advocacy and employee marketing, experiential. It's just a brand new world, and we're taking this message into that new world through these new pipelines.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, to add to that, I think some examples that really resonate with people is now how media, traditional media people are using traditional media in order to grow on social media. The best example that I always use is all the reality shows you see on Netflix, which are the #1 shows in the world, and how every single individual goes on one of those shows, honestly, to become Instagram famous. Like that's pretty well what the majority of them do. And then you've seen conversely where now Netflix is also using the influencer stories as their #1 call it, viewed programming. We see what the Pauls have done. We don't need to go into that, but it just shows the scale and the quantum of how these things are really transforming.
Well, Matt, to bring that all the way home, Jeremy, like look at what happened with the Taylor Swift and Kelsey thing, over the last couple of weeks. That is what we call a social media storm, right? The NFL could have spent $1 billion in media and wouldn't have created what they created in those 4 days ever again, right? And this is what this is what we're helping big organizations figure out, is that the people aren't where you think they are. They're here now. And Viral Nation has a 300-400 person world-class team that knows how to derive those outcomes at scale, and which is the reason for our technologies, right? So you'll see here on your screen, right, Jeremy, it's like secure, empower, creator OS. People are like, what are you doing? What we're actually doing, and our big vision is create the social media stack of large enterprises of the future. So if this is truly becoming the most important part of an organization, Viral Nation in the background, as two Canadian guys with a crazy idea, have now figured out how to bring it all together, understanding that Coke's going to need to move that $1 billion they're spending over time into this arena, and that's not going to work on spreadsheets and communications agencies. So we've spent the last 3 years developing that stack to be able to go to a Disney, a Walmart, an Amazon, whoever it may be, and say to them, there is a solution for this and we can get you there. But we also understand the importance of managed service as a component and helping you to get there. So we've really mixed tech and managed services, because that's truly what this industry needs to be successful in the short term. And we lost quite frankly, we never had the Silicon Valley SaaS bug where we thought, everything we did needed to be pure SaaS. We understand that we're in a people business, and these large organizations want our help. So we've done I feel like a miraculous job at developing technology to support human intervention at scale. And we're seeing the results of that now in spades.
I want to talk about hiring, right? So we have, and you're looking at, if you're listening to the audio, that we're looking at the video too. So you can check out the video as well on the podcast, but at viralnation.com, we're showing some of the brands here, and we'll walk through a few examples so you can understand that. But we're also looking at Viral Nation. What's interesting is the talent group, the marketing group, and what was interesting is you've created these other tech products because of need, right? And the secure is people's profiles. People who are duplicating people's profiles and acting as someone else, right? So talk about how you have created these solutions based on these issues that you were seeing with your creators.
Yeah, Jeremy, it was, and secure, it really does a lot of that. And it started off as a need because some of our enterprise clients who are incredibly brand sensitive, I won't go into names as to who they were, had tasked us with saying, before you hire any influencer or any celebrity for my brand, I need you to prove that they're brand safe. And it was a problem statement where one of them said is, right now our lawyers are watching every minute of YouTube content of a creator before proceeding with any active engagement. So we knew that was completely unscalable and that would never happen. So it was
right. Exactly.
We doubled down on this whole problem statement, and we invented, patent pending, a full service solution around being able to do automated social media checks and ongoing monitoring at scale. And this year alone, we'll process over 1 million social media background checks.
So can a creator actually, I'm curious, purchase this separately from you, or they have to be under your umbrella?
Right now, every creator within our ecosystem gets it as part of their engagement with us. Right now, we're only enterprise facing.
Which is interesting, because I was on one of the channels yesterday, and I was looking for someone specific, and it had their name too, and it had some other name with like an underscore. I'm like, I don't even know which one the real one is, and that person probably doesn't even know there's 3 other profiles out there that's mimicking their profile. Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, the mimicking the profile thing actually is just the tip of the iceberg. It came out maybe like I think about 8 weeks ago. That tool's main ability, Jeremy, is it does full social media background checks across all of social in real time, and it monitors folks. So think of it like we created the Norton antivirus of social media. How do you protect from identity theft, copyright, people's backgrounds? Because what we don't want to do, right, is have a company like Disney align themselves with a celebrity or creator only to find out that, maybe they made a, horrific anti-Semitic post a year ago, or their cultural values are so misaligned from the company, because we've seen the result of that. So when we thought about what that social stack for the future looked like, and we thought about the future of our business, we said, well, if we can't figure out how to protect the brands against our space, how the hell can we ask them to invest in it? So Secure was really that base layer. And then from there, we went into influencer technology. So we built tech, world leading tech on the influencer side. Then we built own social tech. Then we built employee social tech. And basically, these large organizations, Jeremy, socials become so important so quickly that organizations fumbled it. So when, Instagram was important for Pepsi, they hired, some junior 20-something-year-old marketer and were like, go do that. And then they bought a Hootsuite or some community management tool built for that person. And then it was like, oh, influencer, go get this technology. And they ended up with this fragmented design. And then all of a sudden, at some point, especially during COVID, they went, holy crap, our whole business is going this way, and we need to backtrack and figure out how we scale all this. And while that was going on, we were already kind of working on that solution.
How do you stay focused, guys? Because like with this, I see there's so many use cases for this. I see a hiring use case. Like when we're hiring people, we'll look at their social. I mean, big companies could be like, hey guys, like I want a membership. I want to sign up for this SaaS for this just so I can look at hiring, or even a software that helps people with hiring wants to integrate with their hiring software. So there's so many avenues you could take here. How do you stay focused? And maybe you do explore some of those opportunities. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's Jeremy, it's like what we've done is we've created almost like a COE model inside of Viral Nation, where each tech product, each division has a leader. And those leaders are tasked with working together with the larger vision. But if there's opportunity for within their centers of excellence, let's say Secure as one of them, to get into government, into HR, et cetera, they have the teams and the bandwidth, and they're set up to do that on their own. It's not a distraction from the main ship. So what we kind of did was we aligned the priorities, aligned the teams from the grand vision perspective, but gave them their own teams that play into that, but also allow them to kind of go outside of those bounds and flex into different areas where they think they can grow. And what that's resulted in is like, we have this big brand vision that, it coming together creates massive value for the business. But we also have about 9 different areas where you have independent businesses that could become big businesses, right? So it works extraordinarily well together as a team, but also each one of them has their own unique ability to rise up and do incredible things. So it's working well because we have the right leaders across these different things, and we've set it up kind of cohesively from the beginning, and we did it in a non-distracted state, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Talk about the evolution of hiring. First, it's the two of you. It's the two of you pounding the phones, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the first key hire, because now I imagine you were like, we got to get some technology folks in here because you have some major technology software that you're having to build. So walk me through a little bit of a evolution of, okay, it's the two of us, and then some of the key positions you put in place along the way.
Yeah, I think it was funny because it was the two of us, but we also had an imaginary assistant for a good 6 months where we would pretend to be our own assistant because that's all we could ultimately afford. And Jeremy, our approach was, Joe and I, we describe ourselves best as farmer entrepreneurs, where our first business that we started together when we were teenagers, our office was a barn. So we do not know the Silicon Valley playbook. The only playbook that we know is, once you make enough money, you can hire somebody. And that's literally to this day, the playbook that we've, created. And, it started off with actually someone that we went to school with that was in our class in college. He was employee number 1. Because we knew that, we started getting way too busy for the two of us where we needed some support, and we hired our first brand that wanted to work with us. and we needed somebody to really project manage that for us. And then it just kept going on, helping us project manage, where Joe and I remain the agents, literally for 3 years until we launched the brand division. And then it went with, hey, we have to build a sales team. And then once we built the sales team, we realized, hey, this is so new that, there's so much education that needs to happen. So we learned the hard way with that one. And then came really stacking up the different competencies of marketing. So we started building all the different marketing disciplines: social media management, performance marketing, content, events. But really for us, it was always, everyone just has to be ambidextrous, and everyone's got to know every discipline and be able to step in where that comes. So we went from the two of us, and pre-COVID, we were 65, 75 people-ish. And that's when, during the pandemic, was really when we started doubling down on this concept that, we're going to become really technology focused and also increase our talent business. So that went to, we started building our own internal tech team, and we've scaled that over the years. So fast forward to today, 420 people, about 100 total in the technology division, almost about 75 in talent. And then the rest of that is the marketing company and then shared services. So the evolution has been it's been interesting for us, because we've had to balance, 3 different hats: running a startup like engineering infrastructure where we're building world-class SaaS products, with we have a talent agency where, people's only goals are to do deals all day and help talent, very much, a very different culture. And then we have sophisticated marketers who are helping brands, highly creative, being really good partners. So it's been an incredible balance, because those 3 cultures are so fundamentally different when you look at them separately, but they all come together in this concept that we call One Nation. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a hell of a...
What do you do for culture, right? Especially growing so quickly. You have 40, and then you have 400. And I want to encourage people to check out viralnation.com. I mean, there's so many directions we could take this. We only have a couple more minutes, but it's pretty crazy what you guys have created in a good way. And there's so many questions on, you can go to the viralnation.com. If you're looking for talent, you could find talent. There's, if you are talent, I think you guys get 300 applications a day. But how do you maintain culture across the company?
It's been one of the hardest challenges, because I'll tell you, Jeremy, going into COVID, we had probably, and I don't even think I'm overstating this, one of the coolest cultures in all of Canada. And it was highly driven from folks working together. And then boom, here comes no office, here comes no one in the office, and here comes 180 new strangers. And, for us, that was a dramatic change. And quite frankly, obviously unprecedented. And so we've done a number of different things. I think, our core principle that prevails against anything is, me and Matt's willingness and desire to kind of lead by example. So we're not that CEOs type who, kind of just sit there and hope things go well. We're not the type who are disengaged or just do the big meetings. Me and this guy roll up our sleeves and get in there with our teams. Doesn't really matter what part of the division they're in. And that's done us so well, Jeremy, is that leading by example and just being, keep up with me and we're good type thing. And that's been a big secret of success for us. And then the other thing is we've been learning from guys like John Ruffalo and Todd Bowley and folks who mentor me and Matt to start implementing different things that just allow people access to information. I think that was one of my biggest learnings this year, Jeremy, is people can cultivate some pretty crazy shit if they don't know the real shit that's going on. And over communicating what's going on across the company with our teams, and making sure people are heard and having conversations as a group and letting people in on what's going on has made a dramatic impact. I think we still have a long way to go to get back to where we were, and find the balance between the work from home, and now we have people working all over the States and in Europe, and so I think that there's a big challenge that we're on top of and we're tracking. I don't know if anyone has the perfect answer. If they have it, Jeremy, and they give it to you, please send it to me. But we're working hard on it every single day, and we're being pretty transparent with the company that we are, and they really like that as well. So we've been just really over communicating and making sure that everyone's feeling like they're equal, and everyone can kind of see that all of our leaders are digging in. And that's been our magic to kind of success up to date.
Can you mention a few? We talked about one of the monetizations for the talent is the ventures, and there's over 100 there. What are a few examples? You mentioned the yogurt. What are some of the other ones that people have created?
Yeah, I don't know, Matt, do you have that list there? So yeah, one of them was the yogurt. One of them went live this morning or yesterday afternoon. It was a salad bowl. She's one of the largest salad influencers on TikTok. And we actually worked with her to make her own salad bowls. And I found out this morning in her first, they sold over 70% of her inventory in the first 5 hours of her being live, which was good because, well, it's
amazing. Yeah.
So that's an example. We have
a laundry, organic and best in class laundry sheet that one of our mom creators who does folds laundry with her followers on a live stream once a week. And that's been incredible. Really, the success in this is really when, making it part of their content and something that they do, and it highly resonates with their followers. I mean, everyone has a merchandise line. There's only so many t-shirts that people are going to want to buy. But when it's a cooking creator that launches their own salad bowl, because that's part of their day-to-day videos, that's where we've seen great success. And
actually, there's one, Jeremy, I think you'll really like, which is there's a guy on TikTok we represent, and he's called Ranch King. And he's built this massive audience testing different ranch dressings and giving his.
Before I was lactose intolerant, I'd be all over that.
Right. And so our head of ventures went to him and be like, dude, we're making ranch dipping sauce, man. And the guy's like, I'd love to do that. Can I really do that? And next thing you know, we're selling ranch. So yeah, it's really about architecting and engineering the entrepreneurship into these creators. A lot of them will want to sell things they like, but it's not necessarily aligned to the audience. So what we did was we made just a pretty simple formula and rubric that we follow that, goes data first and gives them options as opposed to letting them be free reign. So how do you utilize the data we're accessing in terms of their audience demographics, behaviors, what they buy today, what they search, commentary, you name it. Like, we get all the data we can. Then we even put on a third-party data layer, which is like, what products are selling in general? What's doing the best on Amazon, Walmart.com? We use real data to kind of shrink the pool of things to do down. And then we find the ones that relate to the audience really well. And we go to the creator and say, these are the 3 opportunities that we think have the highest propensity to succeed for you because of these reasons. And that's why I think our creator venture programs do so well, is because there's 100 venture companies for creators, but the creator just says what they want to do and they do it, but they're not really taking the acumen, business, and data approach to the entrepreneurial side of it. They're just trying to one and done these things. And we're trying to utilize data to create something sustainable for these creators, again, with the purpose of creating that stability revenue stream for the creators so they can kind of dictate their lives on their terms.
Guys, I know we're at time here, so I have one last question before I ask it. Where should people contact you? Brands or creators? I imagine NIL is going to be huge for you guys, right? Like, people in NIL who've got lots of followers, now they can actually monetize this. So where can people find you? Where should people go?
Listen, viralnation.com is probably the easiest one. I know we've mentioned it a few times. Obviously, Matt and I are both accessible through social, whether that be LinkedIn or Instagram for me. But we're not hard to find, Jeremy.
Yeah. You must be salivating when NIL stuff came out.
You know what? Yes and no, Jeremy. Unfortunately, so Viral Nation Talent has a sports division, and within there, we're one of the larger NIL talent firms. So I think we have about 100 athletes or something like that. And what I was really surprised at was brands rushed into the space to buy up the top players and not all the players. So, although it's a really big, momentous thing for college sports, unfortunately, there hasn't been enough investment into really spread that across the actual, there's a lot of NCAA athletes. So we've been working really closely with teams and organized schools to figure out different ways that we can motivate brands to want to support these young people. It's definitely, something that we're on, but it's not something that I'm seeing massive momentum in today.
It will be, I'm sure. It will be. So the last quick question is just a mentor and I know you have a board of directors. I don't know if you want to talk about how you chose your board of directors and who's on the board of directors.
Well, listen, our board of directors is made up by the folks who invested in our business, right? So John Ruffalo and Todd Bowley and Jeff and Manny Costas, Jeff Wilbur, sorry. These are all folks that are incredibly inspirational and mentored us for a long time. Manny Costas is the former CMO of HP and Symantec out of the US, and has been with me and Matt for 7 years, as I'd say our lead mentor. And then outside of that, more recently we've built a really serious and magical relationship with Jim Bolsilli over at BlackBerry, the founder of BlackBerry, and he's been instrumental in some of the decisions we've made over the last couple of quarters. And, it's just something that we've always embraced is we're fortunate enough to have hit territories of growth where, these mentors are a lot more open to working with you because they can affect change, right? And that's been really special because, we've leveraged the crap out of that. Me and Matt are 32 years old. This is our first, kick of the can. Me and him are, almost zero ego guys. So, we know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. So, a lot of this has been drinking from a fire hose for me and him and trying to understand what the best decisions are for the org. And had we not had mentorship like we've had, I can't even imagine achieving what we've achieved. So yeah, we rely on our mentorship from folks like that to help us through these innings where, quite frankly, no one in our whole orbit has ever been through them. So they become really, really important.
I want to be the first one to thank you both. Fantastic learning about your journey, your stories. Everyone check out viralnation.com. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Joe.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like $100 grand.